Welcome to Podcast for Fun. This is the show where we dive into the passion, the process, and the journeys of creative storytellers as they bring their stories to life. I am your host, Sophia, and today we are joined by a talented writer and artist, Todd Rayner. Thank you so much for being here, Todd.
Thank you for having me.
So let's start with you telling us a little bit about yourself and your work.
Yeah, so I have kind of always been a fan of comics since I was honestly a teenager, early teenager. And that was always a thing I enjoyed growing up. I never really, I guess, outgrew it. So when I was in high school, I just kind of, that was in the late 80s, early 90s, when, for those that know like the comic history, Image started and that really had a huge impact on me as a creator, as an artist, just a general person. And so I kind of created my own character. I shelved it for several years, and up until probably about 2010-ish, I started kind of getting back into it. And with the kind of modern abilities of printing and really computer software, things like that, I do have a degree in like design and small business. I was like, oh, let me give this a shot and see if I can make something here. And so, long story short, I ended up just kind of revisiting that story, those characters. Really started fleshing out a story for Icepick and Annabelle and Luke, and fast forward, and I have Icepick is finished, all four issues. Annabelle just wrapped up with those four issues, and I'm actually diving into Luke's story here.
What's Luke's story?
Luke's is going to be so each of the stories of the three main characters, they're different genres. Ice Picks is definitely a throwback to the 90s superhero kind of books, and it's a limited series, four issues. Annabelle is more of a strong female character. There's some supernatural things that go on in there. She gets kidnapped by a dragon, so I introduce like kind of open up the world of where these characters live. So I
Mm,
start showing more supernatural characters, more there's magic that kind of shows up in the Annabelle book. And
mm,
Luke is actually going to be a horror book. It's got fairies and vampires in it. So it's going to be like I kind of an old school horror book where it's going to be all black and white.
mhm.
And it's one of those things where I thought it'd be really fun to do like a horror book.
You know what that black and white reminds me of? The Walking Dead books, the comic books.
Yeah. Yeah, like I don't know if they were like shaded, if they had like some things were filled in with grays and shade tones, like, tones of gray.
Mm.
Yeah, but it'll be very similar to that as far as like it'll be a black and white kind of horror book. And Luke travels to Salem, Massachusetts and kind of gets caught up in, a battle between fairies and vampires, and I don't know. It's going to be a fun story. We're almost wrapped up with the first issue, and I'm scripting out the last few pages of issue two.
Oh my God, that sounds so exciting.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun.
So are you typically drawn to like the fantasy genre?
Yeah, I would say so. Like if I had to pick a genre, it'd be like sci-fi fantasy is definitely my favorite.
Mm.
Fantasies, even like with film or TV shows, I do feel that I have that kind of genre the most of all the movies I watch. I watch more sci-fi fantasy movies than probably any other thing.
What would you say is like your favorite like movie or film or like book, like
hmm
story in general?
Yeah, I would say, I guess for a lot of people, just with the era that I grew up, would be, Empire Strikes Back. It's probably my favorite movie, and then the first Alien, that's up there. And Excalibur. There's a 1981 version that's really good
Mm.
that I really like, and a lot of it is just fantasy and sci-fi. You know.
What was Excalibur about?
It's a story of the sword Excalibur, but it's like King Arthur kind of storyline to it. It's got Merlin in it. A lot of
Mm.
the traditional King Arthur characters are in it. To me, like that film from 1981, just it. There's something special about it. Like it looks a little dated. It looks like it's from 1981 a little bit.
Mm.
There's minimal special effects in it, but they're all practical. So from a film standpoint, I tend to appreciate that because they just didn't have computers. Like they did, but they were still kind of becoming like a new thing, and
Mm,
it's a lot of fun. It's a really cool movie because it tells like the story from when King Arthur was like a kid. He drew the sword from the stone, became king, and then it literally chronicalizes almost his whole life. It's not like a super long movie. It is over 2 hours, but it's not
mm.
like this 6 hour long movie. It's not like Lord of the Rings, it's not super long, but it's a really good movie. Yeah.
So you said you like started writing comics in like 2010, right?
Yeah, I wrote like the first Icepick story I did when I was a teenager, and it was awful. I thought it was like looking back when I did so what I end up doing is I write 4 issues and then I put together a trade, and that trade
Mm,
will have all 4 issues in it. I like to put in a lot of extra artwork in the trade paperbacks.
mm,
And, it just seems that a lot of people today that read, whether they're reading comic books or whatever, that they like trade paperbacks. They like that format. They like a complete story. And when I
mm,
did the Ice Pick trade paperback, I added in all of my old high school artwork. So I think it was maybe 25 pages that I had originally drawn out. Like I had the whole first story, like the first issue for the most part, drawn out. Not quite the same as it ended up being in the comic that I published today, but yeah, I mean, I kind of was starting when I was a teenager, but it wasn't in really until I came back and revisited the characters, the idea. I was like, okay, like, how do I flesh out this story? How do I make it relevant, interesting, not something that, seems like it's from the 80s or 90s, something that's
mm.
a little bit more modern.
So how did you do that?
I took some of the core elements that I liked from the original story, as
Mm,
far as like the villain, and I tend to actually, as I notice when I write, I tend to start with the villain, and I'm like, I'll do my research, and it's cool because I like a lot of mythology and mythological, characters or creatures, villains, things
like
like that.
the
So I found a Wikipedia page that just goes in, and I think there's over 100, couple hundred of these, characters, and they list them all out. And then you could go to their page and you read up on it. And then I can do more research like outside of Wikipedia.
mm,
And that's really like Ice Pick was pretty basic as far as the villain. It was like it was a demon. They went to the ninth circle of hell, and it had like Dante's Inferno influence in there. And so I started researching more on Dante's Inferno and like who was in charge of the ninth circle of hell, and it was actually King Arthur's son. And so there's all these things that tie into it.
mm.
It was just I typically start with the villain and I build a story around that villain.
So you're like right the villain, you're like, who can fight this kind of
Yeah,
crazy villain? And then the
yeah.
hero comes, right?
Yeah, and it's or I will read and I'll find a character that I kind of like I connect with or that I find really interesting, and I will say, okay, that's a cool villain. What kind of story can I write around this villain? Like, if it's a random encounter, or is there a motivation?
Mm,
With Annabelle, like the dragon Kerr, like part of the lore and the history behind that dragon was that he was an ancient Sumerian dragon. Like, he was actually the first dragon in mythology of dragons. I was
mm,
like, oh, that's a cool character. How can I write a story around a dragon? So like everybody has their own takes on things. And for me, it was just like, well, he could kidnap her. Okay, he's got like ulterior motives. Like he kidnaps her, and then this is how the story unfolds.
mm,
So it does take a little bit of time. I also, when I write, I
mm,
will do an outline. So I do for each issue, I'll do kind of one like Word doc or whatever, and it'll say like issue one, here's the outline, issue two, here's the outline. Um, some writers do that. I think it helps me stay on track when I'm writing.
mm.
I'll go back to that outline and say, okay, what were my initial thoughts for this storyline? And then I can expand on that, or I can trim some of the fat. I don't typically write a lot of wordy comics. I try to keep it pretty simple, but yet like keep the pace going so it doesn't like really slow down,
Mm.
and it bores the reader. Like I try to write entertaining things, like things that I would find entertaining. Hopefully, the viewers, the readers find them entertaining as well.
So you try to like prioritize visual storytelling, right?
I do actually, and it's interesting you asked that because being a fan of film and media, there were scenes from like even a Daredevil show that was on Netflix, like the
Oh my
first
God,
season.
legendary.
Yeah, it's such a, I mean, I do enjoy a lot of the Marvel shows from Netflix. Some of them are definitely better than others,
Uh-huh.
but th there were scenes in that, I think it's the first season of Daredevil. And I just, as I'm watching it, I'm like, that would work really good for a comic panel. So a lot of things, I do visual storytelling, and even the artists that I've worked with have kind of said that, like when they read my scripts,
Mm,
it's a visual. They can see exactly how it plays out. And maybe that has to do with the fact that I love film or
mm,
that I watch a lot of film and shows, or maybe I'm a fan. It could be
mm.
just coincidence, but I definitely try to tell a visual story.
I gotta know though, like what scene are you talking about from Daredevil?
There's a scene where they have Kingpin handcuffed in the back of the police truck. I think it's the end of season one, and
Uh-huh.
they're taking him away and they're driving, and then like all of Kingpin's goons kind of show up and they shoot up they rescue Kingpin from being arrested,
Mm.
and there's a shot where they're in the back of a truck, and I use that shot in issue 2 of Icepick.
In what scene in the Icepick?
It's a scene where they're getting Luke and Annabelle are getting arrested, and they're
Uh-huh.
in a car, and I was just like, that's a cool scene. Like that would work with having like the way the shot was framed. I'm like that would work with a panel. Like you're inside a police vehicle, you have you're handcuffed, you're sitting in a part of that a truck or whatever, and it just looked like it felt like it would work for a comic book panel.
That's actually so smart. I feel
Yeah.
like it's so cool to like use things you've seen, because then
Hmm.
people can also like familiarize it, kind of, you know?
Yeah. And then there's also like they can relate better because it's something they've
Exactly.
seen, right? They're like, "Oh, that's familiar. I don't know necessarily why. Like it just triggers something with you that, oh, that's familiar." And so it helps to the reader, but it helps to tell the story as well.
Do you have any like pet peeves that you don't like about storytelling sometimes when you watch like movies or read books?
Um, I don't like, it's kind of weird because I don't like a lot of slow storytelling. I know that like when you're telling a story, there is absolutely a time and a place for action. There's a time and a place for storytelling. But there's also you want to have that balance. You want to be able to tell the story in an interesting way to where it's not just talking heads or people just sitting, at a bar and they talk for 10 minutes. You're like, what are we doing? Like, I understand you're giving me story elements, but let's make this interesting for the viewer, for the reader. So that's how I try to tell stories. Like, if I'm going to tell a story element, there has to be a visual to kind of carry the words along with the words carrying the visual. Like they work hand in hand. So
Hmm.
I try to do that. Like that would be one of my pet peeves is try to stay away from just a lot of dialogue in a panel or in a page. If I can break it up into 2 pages and break that dialogue up, or trim some of the dialogue out. Like I've gone back and over time, like 'cause I write all the books and
Yeah.
I will look at it and I'm like, that's too much dialogue. Like, yes, this is important, but is it really? Like, how much of this is necessary to
Yeah.
progress the story? So I'm very cautious of that, like careful not to over tell a story.
I feel the exact same way.
Yeah, yeah,
That was my, okay, maybe it's because I was younger. I feel if I rewatch it again now, I'll actually be able to read it. But when I was like a kid and I watched Star Wars, you know how they have like the huge fat exposition text?
yeah.
I was like 12 years old and I couldn't read it fast enough.
Yeah, and that's the thing with filmmaking is when I was going through college and I took film classes, my teacher
Mm.
was very adamant, like if you're doing video work and you put text up on the screen, read it 3 times before you change it. So whatever it is, like make sure that the viewer can read something three times before you go to the next set of text. And those Star Wars scrolls, some of them go pretty fast. Like there's a lot of words to read.
Yeah,
And then, honestly, that's an interesting point because I don't feel that all of that is relevant to some of the Star Wars movies. Like
I
you bring
know.
this up in the beginning, and then it's like, oh, what about that thing that you mentioned in the beginning of the movie? You never hear or see about it again.
You
So,
know what? I understood it without any of that text in the beginning anyway,
right,
so
right. And that's a testament to like good storytelling and the kind of the original Star Wars. But like, yeah, I just don't always see that we need to over, overtell a story, I guess.
how do you feel about the prequels of Star Wars?
They were okay. I think they served a purpose. I'm not, they're definitely not my favorite. I know a lot of people don't like the last three that came out. I
Uh-huh.
actually like the last three, but the prequels were, I saw one or two of them in the theater. Actually, I think I saw three now that
Mm,
I'm thinking about it. And they were fun. I like if I had to pick a prequel, it would be the third one would probably be my favorite out of those three
yeah.
just because you really get to see like Vader kind of become Darth Vader. That's always fun.
Mm.
But yeah, they're okay.
So, did you start, you said you were a designer before?
Yeah, yeah. I have a degree in design. I've done some video work, even like web design stuff. My day job is a designer, production artist. So, I try to take what I've learned from college and apply that to visuals in any of the books that I publish.
Mm,
To me, it's like it's really important that you have strong visuals, a good logo,
mm,
color choices are certain that they work. Like you see, there's so many comics and so much out there now that you end up having someone that's really good at this one thing, but maybe not so good in another area. And I think it can hurt the product. So I try to make sure that everything that I do present to somebody, a potential reader, that there's a level of quality to it.
would you say you have a weakness when it comes to writing, like a certain aspect?
I'm sure there's stories, there's genres I've never really written because honestly, like I've only written these three stories.
Yeah.
So, and they're written in comic format. So like a comic book script is definitely different than a screenplay or a novel. But I do have a friend that is a now like he's written a few novels and he tried to go from writing novels to writing comic books and it was like a hard transition. Like
Yeah.
he had a lot of dialogue in the story and I mean it worked, but like he's like it's different. It's a really different way to write. So I would probably say like I probably do. I just haven't done enough to know what I
Mm.
suck at, or what a weakness would be. Yeah.
You know what? That means you're doing really good so far, right?
It's so far.
Because
Yeah.
I know my weakness is like harsh angles, if that makes.
Okay. Like artwork wise or storytelling.
I'd say artwork wise, I feel that
Okay.
sometimes my shots aren't creative enough, that there's like a lot of same looking shots.
Okay. Yeah, artwork wise, there's a ton of weaknesses because I've been drawing since I was a kid basically,
Mm,
and I never went. I mean, I took kind of formal drawing classes, anatomy, and all that good stuff in college, so I
mm,
understand all that. But it's one of those things I don't. Sadly, I don't draw every day, and as an artist, any artist will tell you that you need to draw every day. You need to draw out, this thing, this arm, this face, this whatever it is, like draw it a million times, draw it and then you get better at it and it becomes second nature.
mm.
Um, and a lot of artists will say, just draw whatever, draw like what you see. You look out the window, draw what you see, draw it in a way that you feel comfortable.
Yeah.
So yes, it's important, I think, to be a visual storyteller to have creative does like creative angles, but creative sets. creative visuals so that you're right. You don't have like the same look, the same approach, or the same, like if it's two people talking, how can we make that a little bit more visual so it's not boring, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm
Yeah.
interested though. Does that mean that like you work with an artist, right? For your comics?
Uh, yeah, yeah. For Icepick, I did it all myself. So, that was all the writing, all the artwork. It took 10, 11 months to do a completed issue
Mm.
because I have a day job, so I only can really work on it when I have time. Annabelle, I wanted to work with an art team. Came across three very talented artists, and so I do work with them. And then also Luke, I'm working with an artist as well.
Would you say that if you had enough artists, right,
Hmm.
that you wouldn't mind just directing everything, like instead of being the person drawing, would you say
Yeah,
like if you're just like the person like a film director, you know how the film director
yeah.
doesn't like, really do anything, but tells everyone exactly what they need to do.
Yeah, I kind of do that now actually with Annabelle and Luke because I give them the script. I mean, I am writing the script, so there is that part of it.
Yeah.
But they have screenwriters on sets of films, right? And if they need to
Yeah.
rewrite the script, they rewrite it. And so having someone that knows the story or that can rewrite things is important. But that's basically what I have to do with the artists. If
Mhm.
I write like page 10 and I'm kind of like wanting the story to go this way, or the artist will send me a sketch of like, hey, here's the 5 panels. I've actually will go to my script and I will look at what's
Mhm.
being said and how is that going to look with the artwork. And I've had to ask them like, okay, can we change panel 2 to be a little bit different? Can we remove this person from this panel because they're not someone that's talking, right? You're creating background noise and you want to have room for the people to talk. So
Mhm.
yeah, I do a little bit of that now. So I would say absolutely. I think I would be okay doing that.
Me too. That's my ideal position.
Yeah.
But I'm not as
Yeah.
professional as you. I think I only work with like two artists, like one colorist and one
Hmm.
like sketch artist. But
Hmm.
I'm very picky. So whenever I get my art back, sometimes I end up like going in and redrawing some stuff.
Oh, okay.
Do
Yeah.
you ever do that?
I try not to. I think early on I did. And it was kind of a turning point for me as an artist, like just on the art side of it. I started doing sketch covers and people that have seen me at shows, like you can go buy a blank X-Men or whatever, and an artist will draw whatever they want on that. And I started doing those, and I wanted to keep them at a price point for like customers so that it wasn't super high because I mean, original art can be very expensive. And when I started doing those, I was doing them really quick, really sketchy, almost like a gesture type of drawing. And then I would go in and ink it, and I would clean things up when I was inking. And it was like a shift for me as an artist to say, okay, this is done. Like, put your pencil down. You can fiddle around and change things all day, but we're done. And it took me a while to like have that approach with what I do. So I write a script. I'll get it finished. And I'll look over it. I'll reread it, check obviously for like grammatical errors, things like that, but then I'm done. Like, unless I need to rewrite it, if something the artist is sending something back and maybe we missed something or continuity type of things, I'll do small rewrites. But artwork wise, I kind of do artwork in layers when I'm working on comic book pages. I will do my layout.
Mhm.
Then I'll light table my layout onto the artboard, comic artboard, and then I'll do like 2 or 3 passes of that page. Just kind of like I'll start with very loose pencils. Okay, lighten that up. Go a little bit darker pencils. Start fleshing out more solid shapes and the shadows and like the clothing, the hair, things like that. And then I'll go back and do my final pencil. So it's really almost like I have a chance to keep looking at it. Did I
Mhm.
miss something? Do I need to add something? So I kind of don't do that as much as I used to, but sometimes I'll look and say I should have done that better. I should go back and fix this or fix that. But once it's inked, it's inked. I think I've only had to adjust one thing after it was inked. I
Mhm.
don't remember what that was. I think it was something that like I had to shrink it down to make it all fit, and like something got kind of like the artwork didn't extend far enough, so digitally I just extended the artwork to the edge of the comic book page. Sometimes that happens.
Mhm. You know what? I feel like if you want to keep moving forward, you have to be kind of okay. I heard this like fa good quote. You can't be a perfectionist, but you have to be like a greatest. Like you think this is great,
Yeah,
and you could probably be perfect, but you have to move on, or else you'll never be able to finish it, right?
yeah, exactly, and that's how I feel. It's like when in any criticism, because as an artist, as a writer, as a creative person, you're gonna get criticisms. And for me, it's always like, yeah, that's not my best, but that's the best I could do that day.
Hmm.
And, like it or hate it, that's the best I did. And you just take that and try to get better the next time. That's how I approach artwork.
Do you ever like struggle to, finish things on time, like deadlines and stuff?
I don't have deadlines. As an indie publisher, I kind of like it's whenever it gets done.
Hmm.
And I realized when I was doing Icepick, I didn't want to take that long, like for fans, because I didn't know what kind of support there would be for
Yeah.
that style of artwork, that style of storytelling, that type of book. And so when I published it, I was like, okay, here's issue one. I started selling it at shows. People seemed to like it. They would ask, is there an issue two? When is that coming out? So that really motivated me to try to get it done. But even still, it was still 9, 10, 11 months. So for me, I felt that was a little unacceptable to the fans. Like that's unfair to them to take that long. So that's why, like Annabelle, I think it was every 3, 4 months an issue would come out. And then like all the artists I work with, they all have other jobs. So, for indie creators, a lot of what we produce is not our full-time job, like the artwork that we make. I think the guy I'm working with now on Luke, I think that's his full-time job because he's turning in a couple pages a week, which is for the indie scene, that's pretty fast. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I really don't have a lot of deadlines. I just try to plan, like I try to do, maybe 3 Kickstarters a year, so that's roughly every 4 months for the books, and I release them to Kickstart just to kind of help financially, then help, get everything printed. And then that gives the fans something too, because a lot of the rewards and things that we'll offer during the Kickstarter is stuff that the average person at a convention, or if they buy it from my website, they're not going to be able to get those extra things. So
Hmm.
Kickstarter is kind of a nice way. It's kind of like the best for both people involved.
What kind of extra things?
Oh, I've done like lanyards, obviously like stickers, mini posters, bookmarks, trading cards. We just kind of go like all over the place with some of the extra rewards.
What was like the turning point for you that you made you decide, okay, I need to turn this ice pick that I wrote in high school, well, was it high school?
Hmm.
Into a
Yeah.
real comic and I'll self-publish it.
Um, I think I wanted to do that when I was a teenager, but at the time there was no way to print. Like I would literally have to go like to a print shop and have them print it out and staple it together, cut it, staple it. I mean, I would have to do all that myself.
Yeah.
With some of the jobs I've had and being a designer over the last, I don't know, almost 20 years, I get to work with like printers. I've seen like technology advance. I've seen so much advance that at that time I was like, oh, there's a company that's actually going to print a comic book. Okay, what do you guys charge? So then it just became a financial thing, like how much
Yeah.
money do I need to have to make this a thing? And since I'm doing it myself, that money seemed to be a lot easier. It was more obtainable than for someone that has to pay all the artists, and there's a lot of upfront costs. So for me, it was basically like I think the industry technology kind of was at a point where I could do it relatively inexpensive. And I started out with Kablam, which is an indie printer. They do print on demand.
Mhm.
And that's where the first books kind of got printed. And then I moved on from there, but they turned out really good and they weren't terribly expensive.
So how do you go about distributing it?
Nothing right now. Basically, I guess as far as distribution, you can buy the books on my website. You can buy them at shows when I do conventions in kind of the Pacific Northwest area.
Mm,
You can also, back them on Kickstarter, and that's about it. I'm hopefully at the end of the year, once Luke is more towards being finished, there is someone interested in working with me to distribute all the books. But that's probably not going to happen for at least, I'd say 12 to 18 months. It's going to be a while. There's a lot of things that we got to get in line, but
mm,
that person is there. Like he's like, whenever you're ready, I'll distribute your books, and I'm like, okay. So, I mean, for the future, I might have distribution, but for now, a lot of it is just website word of mouth, backing it on Kickstarter.
mm. You said you were interested in like, well, you're in the film industry, right? You're
Uh,
designing film production, was it?
I do design and production artwork for a financial firm, but
Oh, okay.
I'm not like I've worked on films. Like when I was in college, I got to work on a few indie films, and then I've done some video work over the years, but not like I'm not technically in the film industry.
I'm curious, would you ever want your comics to turn into a film? Is that one of your goals?
If the opportunity presented itself, obviously, I think for me, I see the way that studios have handled a lot of superhero characters, some good, some not so good. So it would just be a matter of how much control do I have to say yes or no if I like the way this is going or if I don't. Oddly enough, I kind of feel that like I would see Icepick and those set of characters in that universe would be better suited to be like an animation or anime or something like that. I
Yeah.
just think because of the dynamics of how like a lot of anime is drawn and animated, I think it would suit these characters better.
Mm.
So yeah, I would absolutely, if the opportunity presented itself, I'd consider it.
What's an example of like a hero that wasn't like portrayed well in film in your opinion? Or good, portrayed well
Yeah,
in
there's well, for a lot of us fans of comic books back in, like older comic books, I would say Marvel kind of did a lot of good things and they did some good storytelling, but they also did like some really bad stuff. I would say off the top of my head, I would probably say going back to even like the earlier Spider-Man movies, I would say Venom, Sandman were those were not great characters, the way they
yeah.
handled them. The new Venom is better, but
Mm,
it's this balance of like, are they following canon from the comic books or are they really doing their own interpretation, their own ideas for the character?
mm,
I typically like something that's a little bit more canon to the comic books. So, as great as like Thanos was, like there was a lot of what he was doing was not even close to what he was doing in the comic books. He looked cool, but it just wasn't like the same. So for me, I almost have to separate what's done on film and TV to say
mm,
like that's their interpretation, right? That's not, you know, I view it as a entertainment value only. I don't try to like compare it to comics because a lot of it is done off like nothing to do with the comics.
mm,
So yeah, that's a few. I mean, there's been like other indie ones. There was like a Bloodshot movie that was just really not good with Vin Diesel. Uh, and I kind of got away to watching superhero movies because you just never know. Like a lot
yeah.
of the newer Marvel movies, in my opinion, just weren't really that good. You know?
No.
No.
What's an example of like something that Thanos was like a trait of him, like what he did in the comic that's completely different from the movie?
Well, his whole motivation, like literally the whole thing with as far as the MCU goes, is
Uh-huh.
he wanted the Infinity Stones to basically bring balance to the universe, and like he ended up
Yeah.
like disappearing like half of the universe's population.
Yeah.
So in the comics, like he wanted to please Death. So Death is one of the main characters in Infinity Gauntlet,
Yeah, wasn't he
and
a local
like
or something?
what's that?
Wasn't he in love with death? Or
Yeah, yeah, exactly. He was, and he wanted to please her and do this for her, and they
Mm,
completely took her out of what he was doing in the film. And then it became like, okay, well, now we have to make something up because that was the whole point of the comic books is was
mm.
that point. And if you don't have that, then they had to make something up. And again, it works for the film. I think it works. It was a really cool idea, like that you had this 10-year span of movies coming out, and they a lot of them were like about the Infinity Stones, or they were like they had little moments or nuggets that led you to believe like, oh, they're going on this thing, and then there's an Infinity Stone that shows up. And then they had the two Avengers movies. Like they played it beautifully. And then after Infinity War, it just kind of it all fell apart. Like I don't know, like did the screenwriters just like they were tapped out? Like were they done? Like I don't know what stories to tell. You have like 80 years of comic books of stories to tell. And but yeah, I mean, I would say kind of that's the big difference for me is like his motivations in the comic book were because he loved death, and she was not in the movie at all, you know.
You know, I also kind of didn't like how he brought balance to the universe, right? And
Yeah,
apparently, like supposedly they did something, but then when half of the universe came back, it's
yeah,
like it didn't affect anyone. Like not
no,
there's no consequences, right?
and that's the bad writing. Like that's just bad writing. When they brought everybody back and everything was like normal, and it's just
Yeah.
fine. No, it's really not. Like Ant-Man was the only one I think that in some way was affected because his daughter was older.
Yeah.
Like I think that's the only person that they really showed like an effect. Everyone else is just out there doing superhero stuff, and they bring everybody back and it's like, okay, cool,
I was
you
like,
know,
wait, isn't it gonna be like chaos? Like,
yeah. Are we gonna like go live back in the same house that's like got torn down because if no one lived there for 5 years, or are we gonna have our old jobs back, or like, I mean, they played it in such a weird way that when half the people were kind of disappeared, like sports wasn't a thing anymore. They were showing like empty baseball stadiums, and it's like when I first saw that, I'm like, I don't know if it'd really be that way. Like maybe it would, but if everybody comes back, are they gonna do that again? Yeah, I didn't think it was good story writing.
I wanted to see more like, oh, what happens if they're like half the people, there's like a lack of labor, lack of like
Yeah,
police people. And maybe it's
yeah,
an imbalance. It's like a lot of people who are like, I don't know, like take care of like, a lot of electricians disappear. So everyone's
yeah,
struggling with like what they should have done that, but no, they just did like
something.
sports people are gone. Bro, why
Yeah.
are the sports people? They don't matter at all. What are you talking about?
Yeah, there's like infrastructure things that could have been, even if, and I've said this to my wife when we watch movies, it's like, can they just add like a minute, like 2 minutes, tell me this thing, right? There's
Mm,
something they don't tell you, and they just need to add it in to mention it. They don't have to have like 10 minutes of a storyline,
yeah.
but just add in like a sentence or two to say, oh, something like, well, the like you're saying, the electricians aren't here, so how do we kind of handle the power grid, or how are we handling, infrastructure things? um yeah, it's just, but I'm not a Hollywood screenwriter, so I don't know what they had to go through or the pressures they were under, so
Sometimes I feel like I watch movies and I think, how did this writing pass the screening? Like, what? This makes absolutely no sense.
yes. And that happens a lot. There's a lot of movies like there's a lot of bad movies, like actual bad movies that were never released in theaters, and a lot of movies from the 80s and 90s that went direct to video.
Mm,
And I've been kind of getting into that whole like bad movie, I guess, culture or whatever. And you think like, how did they do like screen readings, and all the actors and actresses sit around and they're like, okay, let's go through our scene today, let's read what how did some of that get passed? Like some of it is like bad. It's just really, that's not how people would talk, or like, did you think this through, because it doesn't make sense.
I think the worst movie I watched very recently. was, Jurassic Park Dominion? I don't know if anybody even watched that movie.
I watched the two when they kind of like started releasing new Jurassic Park movies. The first two I watched. The last one I haven't watched because I mean the first two were okay, but
Yeah.
they weren't nothing like the original Jurassic Park. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So what kind of bad movies did you watch?
Oh, there's all kinds like there's a movie called The Room, which is infamously bad. Tommy Wiseau, like it's just it's one of these, it's a drama, it's awful. There's a lot of like kind of B movies from the 80s and 90s, some action movies or sci-fi movies. I just watched one, it was called Killer Workout, and it's like a horror movie, kind of a slasher horror movie. But again, it takes place in a gym and it's just bad. I mean, it's fun and I like watching it. The music's cool because it's like 80s music, but
Uh-huh.
like people are getting murdered in this gym, but they always cut to like the gym is full. And it's like, who's going to be going to a gym and working out if people are getting murdered in the gym? And it's like weird things like that that make it bad. So yeah, it's fun.
Wait, what's The Room? The movie you
The
said.
Room, oh man, that was I think in the late 90s.
Uh-huh.
And there's like, if you look up The Room, I mean, it's infamously bad. People have said it's probably the worst movie ever made. And there's a charm to it. Like when you know this going in,
Uh-huh.
the acting is terrible. I mean, the main guy, Tommy Wiseau, like I think he directed it, wrote it, starred in it. Like he did everything.
Uh-huh.
And he wanted to film a movie sequentially. So like the first scene in the movie is the first thing that they filmed,
Yeah.
and then the last scene is like the last thing they filmed, because
Uh-huh.
like when they make movies they obviously film them out of order. They're
Yeah.
not going scene by scene, and especially if they got to go to different locations or they're traveling, like actors and actresses, it's scheduling things like this. But Tommy was like, no, I want to film this like scene one, scene two, scene three, scene four, like everything was in order, and it doesn't match. There's like bad green screen, like the CGI is really, it's bad. You should look it up. I'm sure like there's a trailer you can find, and if you like bad movies, that's one of the best.
You know why? You're making me so curious. I might watch The Room after this.
Yeah, I don't know if it's on a streaming platform. Like I have a digital copy, but like I'm not sure where to even find it, but you could probably see the trailer and you would just laugh. Like it's bad. I don't know how else to explain it. It's just bad.
So you watch movies with your wife pretty often, right?
Oh, all the time. I mean, we're constantly like almost, every day on the weekends we're either watching shows. We just finished the Marvel, we did like a Marvel marathon from
Uh-huh.
the first Marvel movie, like I think it was Iron, no, it was but we watched them all in order. Like I think Captain America was like the first one, and
Mhm.
then Captain Marvel. Like they weren't like in the order that they were released. It was the order of the year that the movie took place.
Mhm.
And we just got done. Deadpool Wolverine was the last one, but that's where we ended up watching some of the newer ones that we've never seen. Like the Immortals was really bad. I didn't, or Eternals. I'm sorry, the Eternals. I didn't really care for. The Marvels actually, surprisingly, I really liked. I thought it was
Oh,
fun.
really?
Yeah, I mean, I could understand like fanboys would hate it, but I thought it was fun. I had like some good humor, some a good story behind it. So I don't know why that one got so much hate, but yeah, so we watch a lot of stuff.
So is your wife a film person as well?
She loves film. I mean, she doesn't work in the film industry, obviously, but she definitely appreciates film. She doesn't like bad movies as much as I do. She's like, there's got to be production value here, okay? Like, it's got to look like a movie. It can't look like someone is just like filming with their, I don't know, phone or something, or like a flip phone from the 80s. Like, you can't, or the 90s, you can't, like, it can't look bad, but she definitely likes film and even like TV shows and stuff like that. So we do spend a lot of time
Why do you think
watching.
you like bad movies so much?
I like to laugh at them. I think it's something. I don't know, the last couple of years I kind of uh, have started like I didn't realize growing up that like oh, these were bad movies. Like as a kid, you're just kind of like, oh, I like this movie, you know?
Yeah.
And then you realize what good screenwriting is, what good directing is, what, lighting or good sound editing, what those mean, and how done well, it makes a really good movie. But for me, it was kind of like some of the movies that I would grow, like even some of the Van Damme movies, like even though they're good Hollywood produced movies, some of them are just bad. Like the writing is just awful. The acting is suspicious. It's very questionable. Even though a lot of his movies are all the same, it's like underground fighting tournaments. But I didn't realize that as a kid. Like I watched Bloodsport or Kickboxer stuff like that with Van Damme. But then there's like other movies you're just like, yeah, they could have done better. But it's just something recently I started going down the rabbit hole of like Tubi, and we have some friends that like bad movies, so they'll suggest bad movies. We're like, all right, it's entertaining. It's kind of like painful sometimes, but it's entertaining.
Have you ever watched like Steven Seagal movies?
Oh yeah, see, and that's another thing.
He's
Like
so
I was at
bad.
He's so bad. Like I watched it like like his first few movies I watched. I'm like, yeah, this guy's like a martial. I love like old kung fu martial art movies. I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, this guy's good. And then like now looking back, I'm like, these are terrible. Like they are just so it's like that kind of thing. Like when you're a kid, you don't realize that. And
Mhm.
hopefully like my stories and the stuff that I write now, looking back, 10, 20 years from now, it's not bad. Like
Yeah.
hopefully what I do holds up over time.
Yeah, I don't think you're gonna look back like, oh my God, this kind of reminds me of Steven Seagal. Like, how could I think? Yeah, I'm kidding, but you know
Yeah,
what's funny?
that's I hope it doesn't happen.
You know what's funny? I have a core memory of being a child and thinking a movie was good after leaving the theater. And then my family starts being like,
Hmm.
oh my God, that was the worst movie I've ever seen. And then suddenly my mindset changed because I'm so gullible. It's like, oh, it was bad? Ah, I thought it was kind of good. I don't know what makes a
Yeah.
movie bad or good, you know?
I'm kind of the opposite, like at least recently,
Yeah,
where I'm watching a movie, I'm like, this is kind of bad. But then other people are like, oh no, that was really good. I'm like, I don't know, like, okay, production, like if it's obviously if you're gonna go see a movie in the theater, it's gonna
yeah,
look like an actual movie. It's gonna
yeah,
sound good, it's gonna look good. But then, once you kind of I guess once you kind of see like or understand like what good writing is or what bad writing is, you start to notice that when you listen and watch movies, you start to realize like they mentioned something early on in the movie, but then they never talk about it again. Or they'll say like this is an important plot, but then it never gets resolved.
hmm,
Or like the littlest thing ends up becoming like this huge thing that was never really described as something that was that important. It's weird things like that, like Alien Romulus. A lot of people like that movie, and I was just like, we saw it in the theater. I'm like, I didn't like it. I mean, it was okay. It looked great. It sounded good, but it just started taking all these different elements from all the other Alien movies and put it all into one movie instead of giving me something original, giving me kind of, they gave you a little bit more of the Alien universe,
yeah.
but it was like, here's a little bit more, but we're gonna kind of fill it with all the other alien movies. So you
Mm.
really don't have anything new to offer. You're just offering the same old thing. So I was
Mhm.
a little disappointed with that movie, but yeah.
Do you feel like since you write your own stories, right? You start
Hmm.
like instead of kind of enjoying the movie, you kind of see it from like a writer's perspective. You're like, oh, you guys did this
Yeah,
because like it's too expensive to do a better version of it or something like that.
yeah. Absolutely. I think I do. And good or bad, it happens. And I think good or bad, I end up watching movies that I've seen 100 times, and I'll go back and watch, and then I'll catch like some of the dialogue that's being said, or that was written, and
Hmm.
it's like, why that doesn't seem to work, or that could have been said better, or it could have been explained a little bit easier or explained better. So yeah, for better or for worse, I kind of do that a little bit. I will think like as a writer or as an artist, like I would approach this I would have done it a little bit differently, or it could have been done a little bit better, you know.
Do you ever face like writer's block?
Uh, I haven't yet, I think, and maybe because again, just writing the three stories I have, I write an outline. So
Mm,
once
yeah.
I have that outline, it really helps me to like not kind of have writer's block. I know a lot of people do. I probably have artist block more than writer's block. Like
Mhm.
I have like a bunch of artwork that I need to finish, but I move on to the next thing, or I'm just like, I don't know what to do. So I don't do anything. And it's like, well, you didn't draw today because you didn't feel like doing anything. So yeah, not so much writer's block, but artist block, definitely.
Where would you say you get like the most inspirations from?
Uh, the world, like honestly, everything. I, I get inspiration from social media. I try to be very particular on who I'm friends with. They have to kind of, it may sound a little selfish, but like who I follow, how I interact on social media, it's important that those people bring something to me, right?
Hmm.
Hopefully I can do the same to them, but I follow a lot of artists, I follow a lot of writers, musicians, people that do inspire me, and film and entertainment, like we talked about, like that's extremely inspirational to me. I was kind of really inspired early on in the 90s as far as comics go, and those artists have throughout the years continued to inspire me and still influence me, like even a lot of my art, it's influenced by a lot of those early image creators and artists, so kind of everything.
You know what? I don't think you're selfish at all thinking like that. Because it's
Yeah.
true. You get affected by the people around you and what you consume, right? So you got to be picky
Yes.
with what you're like
Consuming.
indulging in. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So who would you say is like one of the artists that inspires you the most?
It'd definitely be Todd McFarlane. I mean, me and my wife met him. Really, really nice guy. I mean, founding member of Image. It was like his Spider-Man was one of the earliest books I bought as a kid. So,
Mm,
just being at the right time with the right artist in that era, he really, and then even when he did Spawn, I mean, that was like, again, it was just an evolution of his art style and his storytelling. So that influenced me with Icepick, like the Spawn and the Batman, the anti-hero type of thing. So absolutely, I would say it was Todd McFarlane.
So what did you like about his like storytelling and art?
It was just ridiculous. I mean, for lack of a better way,
Ridiculous? What
it
do you
was,
mean?
yeah, it was so over the top. And so much of it was just like, it was like a lot of in your face art. Like the artwork, it did kind of feel like it was coming off the page. Like he would do these really cool angles of Spider-Man, swinging with the cityscape underneath him. Not a typical shot where you see like the outline of the buildings, like kind of almost like a flat image where you see like the skyline of a city and you see the shapes of the buildings. He would do an angle that's on top of the buildings and you're looking down into the city and you see the streets down below, and you have these really, like you said, harsh angles.
Mm.
That was one of the things that really like pulled me into his art style. And then the storytelling was just like the villains were larger than life. They just seemed to be like, way over the top. And everything was like turned up to 11. And for me, like, I read comics because I like to escape. I don't
Mhm.
write, that's fine. I know there's a ton of comics out there that attack, like, or not attack, but they talk about like real life drama, real life issues and concerns. And I think there's definitely a place for that. But for
Yeah.
me, like, I like escapism. I like to read super fantastical stories. I like to watch stuff like that. I typically don't watch a lot of dramas or even a lot of comedies. I tend to watch, like we talked about, the fantasy, the sci-fi stuff that's doesn't live in this real world. Like we have
Yeah.
enough to deal with in our everyday lives. I
Yeah.
don't want to like get, I don't want to like kind of think about like, well, what's the possibilities out there in my life because I'm reading a story that is really a very dramatic or very like touching story that it could just negatively affect me, you know. Um, but again, I think there's a place for that, and I think there's a lot of readership for that. But for me, I like to escape, and McFarlane really did that with his artwork and the storytelling. It was just nothing in this real world. Like it was real things because I think in Spawn it was about there was like the devil and there was good and evil. So yes, it's grounded in some sort of reality. But
Yeah.
I mean, the whole idea of like going down to hell and coming back to lead Hell's army, I mean, it's so absurd on some
Yeah.
level. So I really enjoyed that. So yeah.
You know what my favorite part about comics are? When you're like reading, there's like a bunch of small panels and then there's like this huge like splash drawing that covers like both
Yes.
pages. It looks so cool.
And that's what those image guys started to do that because when you go back to like the old school way of doing comic books, a lot of like what Stanley and Jack Kirby did. I mean, even a lot of the guys from the 60s and 70s, they drew within those panels. And there were Marvel and DC were pretty, strict on like how many panels you have per page, how do the panels look?
Yeah.
And as the 80s progressed, we started getting panel breaks where they would draw the characters outside the panels, like a hand would come out of the panel. And that was a way to make that look a little bit more dynamic or that the person's reaching outside of the panel. And then again, like into the 90s, it continued to evolve. And I love the splash pages. I write in my books, there's at least one or two in every single issue.
Yeah.
And I like that visual kind of storytelling, especially if it's like an action scene. You can have
Yeah.
like this fight, and then you can have like someone punching someone else or kicking or doing something, or you have like this car crash and you have this huge explosion. And having a two-page spread gives just the artist more room to draw all the fun little details.
Yeah. Do you have like any scenes you remember from your comics that you like read when you were younger that like really like impacted you so much you remember it like vividly?
I'd probably still go back to some of the early Spider-Man issues when McFarlane was drawing them. Some of the covers really stuck out. He did a cover, it was like Spider-Man kind of crawling down, and then there was like Captain America, had this superhero pose. Some of the even like the Venom issues where he introduced Venom, and then he started doing his own Spider-Man series. There were definitely some panels or some pages where it's like the way he drew Spider-Man in the city, you felt like Spider-Man was flying high above the city. He wasn't like down in the trenches. He was just up in the air, you know, free as a bird kind of thing. And that definitely impacted me and influenced me.
Would you want this comic to be like a full-time job?
Yes and no. Like I thought a lot about that, and I think knowing a lot of the artists that I know and being friends with so many artists, a lot of them are full-time artists, but a lot of us aren't.
Yeah.
And just knowing the grind that the artists have to go through, knowing that it's always like the next position or the next job, the next thing. I would enjoy that, but then it doesn't become a hobby anymore. It kind of becomes like work,
Yeah.
and I think I would if I was, if the opportunity presented itself and I could, I was able to do a monthly book and I would write it because I'd be able to write a monthly book or two books. I mean, I know writers, I think they can write three, four, five books sometimes a month. I would
Mhm.
definitely write this as a monthly if it presented itself like financially, it'd have to work out and then also time-wise, I totally would. I think if there's if the fans kind of demand it, I'll be that person to make sure that I can do my best to achieve that.
But you wouldn't like actively like push yourself to try to make it a full-time job is what you mean, right?
Yeah, right. Like I'm not going to sit there and quit my day job and then make this my full-time job. I
Mhm.
don't think that right now that's kind of one of those things that would happen. And I don't even know if it would take years to really build that up. But, with crowdfunding and things like that, you get a sense of like how many people are going to support this book. And, you can look at it from a business side point and say, well, if you're getting 50 backers on Kickstarter, okay, you're probably not going to make this like a
Yeah.
full-time job. But if you're getting 100, 200 backers, okay, that's a very small pool of people that, support comics on Kickstarter. Well, then if I go into full distribution between comic shops, between even here in Canada, and you start doing more conventions, which obviously is more cost, but then you're widening your fan base, then maybe there would be room for like me making this a full-time monthly gig.
So like if the opportunity arises, you would make this a
I think,
full-time.
yeah, I definitely would, but it'd have to kind of all the things would have to align for it to work. Yeah.
Is your job more like from like remote or do you have to like go somewhere to do it?
No, it is remote. Yeah.
So do
Yeah.
you use that advantage and travel a lot?
No, actually, I kind of like this is where I work. Like I have my office in the house, and I come in, I shut the door, and I'm working, or and I do what I need to do throughout the day. If there's downtime, I fill my time, but I'm always available for my job.
If whenever you have like ideas, right?
Hmm.
I sometimes like stop everything. I'm like, guys, stop. I need to write this down right now because I just have like a story idea. Do you ever do that?
I don't know if I have. I I have ideas, but maybe I have a couple times, but nothing really comes to mind because like I've had these stories, at least for these three stories,
Mm.
kind of floating around for a while now. There is another story once Luke is done. I started writing it, so I kind of got like squirrel brain, and I was like, oh, this is a cool idea with this villain. And I started writing like a few pages of the next story.
Another
But
villain.
yeah, that one's going to be fun. But that's like a year or so away because I need to wrap up Luke, and that's 4 issues and a trade. And
Mm.
so I do get distracted, but I don't typically will stop everything and make a note or write something down. Yeah.
Do you feel like you've become more efficient with your working style
Oh
since you
yeah,
started?
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. You have to,
Yeah.
yeah.
Like what kind of things have you changed?
I actually use voice dictation, like Siri, to when I'm writing scripts. Instead
Mm.
of me typing, it's faster for me to talk the script than to write it. Yeah. So yeah. So I do that.
Mm.
I have a drawing tablet, which definitely speeds up the process of doing layouts. I do all my layouts digitally, and then
Mm.
I'll print those out. Obviously coloring is all digital, so I've built in some efficiencies like actions in Photoshop that like when I open up a document, you couple, keyboard shortcut and all your layers are set up and everything's good to go. So yeah.
I just imagined the scenario where you're like doing your script, right? And then your wife is like, "Is he talking to himself?" And you come open the door to see you like talking to your phone. Like,
Yeah,
no,
she
this is
knows I do that. Yeah, she knows. And typically I'll do writing when I'm in between work, but
Mhm.
and she's not home. I don't know if she's ever been home when I do script writing, but yeah, that would be funny.
How do you like find your artists?
Social media for the most part. Like, I mean, not that that's the perfect place, but I have found success there.
Mhm.
I know there's various websites that also do that, but the comic book community is actually a pretty close-knit community. You know, I've worked with, a guy, one of the colorists that was a colorist for Spawn. So, we're
Wow.
friends. Yeah, and like to me, like I look at these artists and they are influences to me and I look up to them. They've had this 20, 30 year career in comics, but at the end of the day, like they're people too, and they're artists. And, we're at a place where we can reach out to them. And if their schedule permitting, then I can afford them, then I work with them. It's pretty, for me, it's pretty simple.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I have a final question, not final, but one of them. What would you say if you could give one advice to
Hmm.
the aspiring storytellers watching this right now, what will you tell them?
Keep doing it. Just keep doing it. Like people have asked me, like art wise, and it's like, a teenager or even like a young kid.
Mm,
And, I've had people approach me at shows and they're like, oh, my daughter, my son, they like to draw or they like to write. That's my answer is always just keep doing what you're doing. You will get better if you're not happy with what you're doing. You will improve if you care enough, and you'll find success one way or the other. If it's something that you're passionate about, you will find success. So just keep doing it.
that's so beautiful. Did you ever have a moment where you're like, oh, like I don't really like what I'm making right now?
I erase quite a bit when I'm drawing. uh, I mean, there's a panel I'm stuck on. It's like a headshot, and the
Mm,
angle is just goofy to me. It just what I had in my head isn't translating to paper, um, and it's not a big deal. I mean, I can always obviously erase it, change it up, do what I need to do. But
mm,
there's times I get stuck. There's times I kind of like, I don't like this, but like we've talked about, like. I put my pencil down. I'm like, well, that's enough for today. I'll come back to it tomorrow or the
mhm.
next day. And then maybe I'm inspired or I don't like that. So I erase it and I come up with something totally different. So it happens.
Yeah. Yeah, I tell myself that too. I try to
Yeah.
do it like I like wait till dinner and I tell myself, okay, I just have to do this and if it hits dinner, I can't touch it anymore. And then it
Yeah.
becomes dinner and I can't touch it anymore. And
Right.
I just
And
save
then,
it.
yep. You just wait. Like I'll wait another day because I do it all myself on my own timeline. So, you know, um, and I have had a few deadlines where I work with other indie creators and publishers. But I just bracket out my time and I'm very methodical. I need to do an hour a day or 2 hours a day and I'll meet my deadline. So
You sound very, very productive. I
I
procrastinate.
try, not every day. I try. It's hard.
So, where can people find your work, Todd?
Yeah, I am all over social media, Todd Rayner Art or Dark Space Studio. I have a website, Dark Space Studio.
Mhm.
Feel free. I'm out there on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. There's an app called Kara, which is really nice, and Mastodon is another one, social site. I'm on those platforms. I am on TikTok as well. I don't post there a lot, but I will post to TikTok. There's a YouTube channel I also have that has a lot of uh, videos of me drawing and explaining my process, talking about, just like the thought process of what I'm working on. So Dark Space Studios or Todd Rayner Art.
So is the Dark Space Studio like just the name of your like little studio?
It is. It's actually an official LLC. So and that's actually a name my wife kind of came up with. We were sitting at in Portland when you're doing a convention, and we were just like, we need to come up with a studio if you're gonna really take this serious. I was like, yeah, okay, I'll take it serious, and we just threw out some ideas, and that worked. So
Wow, that sounds so professional.
yeah,
Ah, I need to have
yeah,
that too.
yeah,
I just have like the for fun thing. Everything, all my usernames just have for fun at the end. That's why it's just
yeah.
like podcast for fun.
hmm Yeah, it really wasn't that expensive, and I know with a lot of people, like they use the money side of it to not do something, right?
Mhm.
Even if you save $5 a month, you're eventually going to reach your goal of
Yeah.
whatever that financial goal is. So, you know, getting incorporated like LLCing, it really wasn't a whole lot. And now I just gotta, being a legal company, there comes responsibilities with that. So, but it's nice. I have my own logo, my own company I can publish. And it's basically a studio, so it's not limited to just comic books.
Mhm.
If the opportunity presented itself, I would work with other medias, whether it be music or novels or really whatever. So
I'm sure those days will come because sounds
maybe,
professional and you're
yeah,
professional, so.
I try.
Well, that's a wrap for today's episode of Podcast for Fun. Thank you so much, Todd, for joining me and sharing your incredible insights to me and everybody watching this right now.
Thank you.
And to our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with everybody, especially fellow storytelling enthusiasts. And if you have any questions or topics you'd like me to explore, you can drop them in the comments or connect with me on any of my social medias at Podcast for Fun. Until next time, keep creating, keep dreaming, and we'll see you on the next episode of Podcast for Fun.